Seriously though, at this point everything's been said about The Legend of Zelda. Do I have anything left to say? Yeah, this game is just a masterpiece, and most everyone agrees with that. But this video isn't about that. It's about the sequel! Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, a game that has garnished a decent amount of dislike over the years. Although it is still seen as a classic NES game and nowhere near as bad as, say, the CDI Zelda games, public opinion isn't the strongest with this one. So let's see what made this game so infamous, and if the complaints even hold up at all, or if they're just, dumb. Number 1. Side-scrolling right out of our hearts. Undeniably, Zelda 2 plays very differently, and you can tell that within seconds. Boom! It's a side-scroller now. Is that a bad thing? It's different! Zelda 1 had a top-down perspective, which made it very easy to survey the land and get an idea of what's going on around you, whereas the majority of Zelda 2 was a side-scroller, like Mario or Castlevania. Zelda 1's viewpoint was more conducive to exploration, since everything was laid out like a map, hence why it was used. It was the focus of the game. Zelda 2's focus was in combat, therefore everything had to change to fit that change in focus. While there still is exploration via the overworld, there's no denying that this game was about sword fighting. In the original Zelda, you kinda just poke your sword out in front of you. Zelda 2 had stabbing at 2 different elevations. You could stab up, you could stab down, you could jump and stab, you could do whatever you wanted. There were a lot more options when it came to how you approach enemies within combat. The shifting gameplay style is one of the biggest splitting points for fans, and it's sad because it just comes down to it's bad because it's different, which is not true. But Zelda is about exploring! Number 2, Link, the Explorer. As stated before, Zelda 1 had a great sense of exploration. The world was big and there was a lot to do in it, and it was fun. Is that not in Zelda 2? There still is exploring, and while you won't bomb a random wall to find a cave, or burn a bush to find a staircase leading to a dark room with an old guy, the world still feels huge, and there's plenty of reasons to go out and find what's out there. A lot of it is necessary too. To get the Reflect spell to beat Palace 4, you need to find some kid and bring him back to the town, albeit hilariously. And there's many other things in this world that you have to find under your own wit and want to explore. It's still the same idea, the idea of adventuring under your own want to explore and find what's in this world. Number 3, RPG. I'm not going to dwell on this one too long, but there are a few things that I want to bring up. Zelda 2 added things that are considered RPG elements. Well, okay. Is that a bad thing? From the beginning, Zelda always had RPG elements, so why is it just Zelda 2 that's getting shit for it? Isn't it similar to how you get the White Sword in Zelda 1? You need enough hearts to be able to use it, and they openly use the term experience. Yes, I'm not fucking stupid, and I do realize that there is a difference in this, but the idea is still there. The idea of growing stronger through exploration. So this complaint just kinda seems weird. But the other addition to this game were these random battle type enemies that appear on the map when you walk around. You hit them and go into a battle screen. People say that, well, this isn't Zelda, so we have to give them shit for this. People don't complain about this in games like Final Fantasy, do they? Again, it's bad because it's different, clearly. I don't really mind this too much, because it keeps you on your toes when you're traveling, and it makes the world seem more treacherous and your journey more exciting for it. It also makes sense for the combat focusness of this game. The overworld is more like a map, to get an idea of where you are, so it would be a big step backwards to have a battle here because it would ruin the more complex sword fighting that this game has. If you were to have battles on the screen, it would just end up being like the first Zelda, just a poke in front of you again. Joy. Obviously there are going to be people that will say that's what they wanted from the game, but in the sense of moving forward, it's kind of not. Number 4, items and magic suck! The items in Zelda 1 were essential to getting through certain parts of the game. Long-range weapons just made sense for the already stated fact that the sword sucked. Kinda like Castlevania. In Zelda 2, the sword has a lot more control and a lot more options in how you use it, so items would have just taken the focus away from it. Instead, the items are used more as tools to help you get around the world, instead of using them for battle. The candle lights, dark caves, the glove and hammer break rocks, you get the idea. This was, again, to keep the focus on the sword, but to still feel like you're finding things in this world. Now, on the other side of that, magic was added in the game to improve combat, like making you jump higher, making you take less damage, making you shoot a fireball, or just run away. But at the end of it all, the game still kept its focus on the sword, and everything it added reflected that. In later Zelda games, magic was used more for items, which made more sense because they went back to the top-down exploration view where the sword wasn't that good. Number 5. It's too hard! Okay, I'm sure this is the point that everyone was waiting for because it's usually the biggest complaint about this game. In my opinion, it's the stupid. Now let's see where I'm coming from. Castlevania. Hard as shit. It's a good game. Ninja Gaiden. Oh my god, it's so hard. It's a good game. Ghosts and Goblins. Oh my fucking god, it's so hard! Good game. Why is Zelda 2 given shit for this? Compared to these games, Zelda 2's difficulty is nothing. Do people forget that the first Zelda game was really hard? Do you remember those nights? I do. There's not too many cheap deaths in this game, and you really feel like when you die, you deserved it. And the game doesn't just start off really hard, it starts off easy and gets progressively harder, like a game should. Oh. Death Mountain is the part where everyone seems to lose their shit. They say the difficulty spikes way too much here. It's a maze and you're guaranteed to die instantly from this place. I don't know, I'm starting to feel alone in this, but I never found Death Mountain that hard. I don't really consider myself to be that good at this game or that good at games in general, but I got through this with relative ease, without grinding, just by going to the next part to next part. A lot of people say these guys are the main reason it's so hard, and yes, they are hard, but there's only a few of them near the end, so I'm just gonna consider them the boss. And look, they even give you a little path so you don't have to backtrack through the entirety of Death Mountain. Or you could just die and start from the beginning. Number 6. Zelda 1, if you die in the middle of a dungeon, you start off at the entrance of the dungeon, and there's no real penalty for dying, so who cares? In Zelda 2, throw that shit out the fucking window! If you die in Zelda 2, kill yourself. Just fucking kill yourself. If you die anywhere in this game, except the final palace of the game, you will have to start back from the beginning and lose all the experience points that you have collected. Let's look at both the positive and negatives to this.
Positives? What?
Let's start with the negatives, because this is usually the opinions that people want to hear. This shit sucks, because that means that if you're in the middle of a palace, you have to walk all the way back just to get back to where you were. The same goes with leveling up. Near the end of the game, you need experience points in the thousands. Most enemies give you 10 to 100. So imagine killing tons of enemies just to lose all that work. Kill yourself. So now let's look at some of the positives. Fear. The fuck is wrong with you? The fuck is wrong with you? This game keeps you on your toes and terrified to die because of the consequences it holds. These halls are so scary to walk down because they usually have a knight in them, which are a pain to fight, especially when you're on low health. You would walk down these halls and just say, oh god, please don't let there be a knight, please fuck. Ah! Yeah, like that. Yes, I understand Zelda games are not meant to be scary or even incite fear, but this idea gives a great and true feeling of immersion. Link is afraid to die because you are afraid to die. In Zelda 1, you're just a kid. You don't think about the dangers of being an explorer or fighting monsters. Your imagination omits those fears for a moment and you just run into it. You don't think about having skills with a weapon, you think, I have a sword, I can fight monsters. You don't think about the consequences of dying, so you don't worry about it. In Zelda 2, you're much older. Death is a real thought to you and it means much more when you die. You need to actually be able to know how to use your sword, or you will die. You need to stop and think before you enter a situation and be prepared for that situation. I'm not sure how much the designer thought about this when they were making the game, but that's just how I see it. The idea of adventuring through both a kid's and adult's perspective. I don't know, I guess that one's just a personal point. Conclusion! Both Zelda 1 and 2 have problems for sure, and neither are perfect, but they both have enough good to shine through and be called great games. From what I can tell, the root of Zelda 2's hate comes from the fact that it's different than the first. Why would you want everything to be the same? Wouldn't that be boring? What if Donkey Kong just stayed as an arcade-type games where you jump over barrels and climb a building? instead of the great series that it became? What if games were still just about getting a high score, not about the adventure or immersion or story? Games change. Games evolve. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the not so good. When this game was made, there was no Zelda formula that everyone clings onto. There was just one game. They wanted to expand on the idea that they laid out and try some new things. As for the difficulty, well, most of the NES library is probably out for you if you hate it so much. Most of the games have that, and a lot of them are praised for that. In the end, I think you should stop clinging to how different Zelda 1 and 2 are, and just look at them as their own games.